It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andi Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Brian Wilson, and unfortunately, my co-host Andi can't be with us today, so I will have nobody to make really dumb jokes with in the beginning, so I might as well just get straight to our guest. I'd like to introduce our guest. You may have heard of him before. He's pretty well known in certain circles. Welcome to the show, Andi Grabner. Andi.
That's an interesting introduction. So you basically, I'm your guest today, of course.
Because you could not be my...
Of course, right. No, it's not possible. I understand. These are mutually exclusive roles.
Exactly.
So, perfect. Well, thanks for having me on the show, Brian. I've
my
heard a
pleasure.
lot about your podcast. Yeah.
My pleasure. I was kind of pressured to have you on by somebody, but I won't say who. I think we're causing a rift in the time continuum, space-time continuum with this.
Yeah.
So, Andi, how have things been going with you?
Good. Well, I know, and we just talked about this before the recording. This is going to air the day before Christmas Eve, correct? So today, if people are listening...
Christmas Eve, as people might say.
Eve, okay.
Yeah.
When do you celebrate Christmas? You personally,
every day is Christmas. Day for giving. How do you even know I celebrate Christmas?
That's actually a good point. So
we do both. You know, we'll have some neighbors and stuff over for some food and libations on the 24th, and then the local family here in Denver on the 25th.
Cool. Well,
and then it's a fun week of kids home from school. Which, as an adult with kids, you finally get to understand. There's a line in one of the Christmas songs, and Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again. And when you hear that, you're like, oh, now I get it. I thought they were being mean when I was little, but now I'm like, oh, okay. And when my daughter hears that, she's like, that's mean. I'm like, you'll get it one day. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's going to be the first Christmas that I'm not celebrating with my family at home in Austria.
Right.
Because I'm celebrating with my new family in Colombia. So we're flying, well, as of today, right? If today is the 23rd and you listen to it, we're already in Colombia and celebrating with Gabi's dad and family. So that's good.
Yeah, and I'm probably driving home from skiing. Yeah. But you're going to be in the Southern Hemisphere though, right? And
no, it's still the Northern Hemisphere. It's still just above the equator. But it's very close to the equator,
See, that's how bad the American school system is. I did not know that.
Well, you got Google Maps for that type of education, right?
Yeah, but see, I was gonna make some stupid joke about everything being upside down, but it kind of doesn't work now. Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to make dumb jokes. I mean, that's what we normally do. Okay. You are a world-renowned performacologist, although that's Mark's title, we know. But You always do a lot of research, and you're always working with a lot of people and looking at ways that performance can be improved, processes can be improved and automated, basically how to speed up with extreme quality, getting code out the door with great performance, right? And you learn a lot of things, and I think that's what we're here to talk about today, something along those lines, I would imagine. So what is it specifically you would like to share with us today from your latest learnings?
Yes, you're right. So I was fortunate enough to be kind of nominated again to own one of the tracks at our upcoming Perform conference in Vegas, where we are all going to be, you and Mark and James Pulley, doing the podcasting. And so for those people that are not aware of it, right, perform.dynatrace.com, check it out. We'll have an awesome conference again. Now, I was asked again to run what last year I think was called DevOps to NoOps track. This year we renamed it to Release Better Software Faster, because that's, as you just said, right, that's basically the whole theme. How can we all transform into digital native software companies that can release better software faster, shorter feedback loops, and just getting stuff out to customers faster, and then understand faster on just whether the stuff we're building is actually the right thing. So what I wanted to talk about today is kind of give an overview of that track so people know what they can expect, but really about the learnings, especially in the last year, that really shaped my track. Because last year, Brian, you probably know this, we have focused as Dynatrace a lot on what we call autonomous cloud management. And we introduced the concept of autonomous cloud enablement teams, so the ACE teams, which, the way I explain it, these are the teams within organizations that enable development teams to become more autonomous with the cloud technology, where cloud does not just mean public cloud, it just means whatever you think as cloud is, hybrid or it can also be on premise, but it's basically leveraging cloud technology and enabling development teams to become more autonomous by providing them the right tools, as much as possible as self-service, so that they can release better software faster, basically, right?
Right. And this ties back to, just to make a tie into some of the previous episodes, I was just doing a review of these on one of our meetings. We recently talked to Nestor and team at Citrix, where they have this really well built out set of bots that are talking to each other. So a developer just types release the code, and it's all taken care of. And it's all these teams that you're talking about setting up and making sure this stuff works in the background so that developers can do this and takes all that pain out of their job. As well as we just recently had on Gene Kim with the Phoenix project, and half of or most of the goals of the teams in that book were to set up these sort of processes that you're talking about right here, so that if a developer wants to join the company and start pushing code, they don't have to open 20 tickets and get access to 50 systems in order to just push out a small code release. Everything is just on and running, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to get that all set up, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we need to, and this is also going to be one of my main messages. So besides running the track, they also, believe it or not, invited me to go back on main stage and talk about.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe it either. But that's the way it is. Maybe they will regret it after my presentation. But in all seriousness, what I'm going to talk about is DevOps in action, and I really want to actually focus on developer productivity, because that's one of the key takeaways that I also took from Gene's book on how can we make sure that developers are productive. I really liked what he said in the podcast, and also he references it in the book, that companies like Nokia and Microsoft, and he gave a couple of examples, but the good and the bad ones, but basically focus your energy, focus your best engineers on actually building productivity, because this will have the biggest impact on, let's say, on all the other developers that you have, right? And and I thought that was really cool. Now, in coming back to the release better software faster track, I'm actually kicking it off with the Dynatrace ACE team. So now, Brian, you and also the listeners probably know that we've been talking about our own transformation over the last couple of years. We talked about DevOps to NoOps, from basically 0 to NoOps in 80 days. And we talked about from 6 months release cycles to deploying basically continuously. And we had Anita on the podcast. We had Bernd on the podcast. And I think it was like 2 years ago, probably, right?
Yeah, I think we also had Thomas on the podcast speaking about it at one point too.
Yeah. So Thomas is actually, Thomas Reisenbichler, he is actually coming with me on stage to kick off the track. And he will actually give an overview on how has the Dynatrace ACE team actually evolved into the ACE team, into the autonomous cloud enablement team. What are their roles? What are the current challenges? And because I think it's always great to not just talk about the things we've been talking about for the last 2 years, where we talked about how we increased the release cycles, how we improved quality, and how we implemented the UFO. We've been talking about this for a long time. I think now it's time to bring the team actually back and say, this is the status quo. Thomas was also asking me, is it also okay to talk about the things that are challenging? Because there are a lot of things that are challenging, especially with the amazing growth we are currently experiencing as an organization, both on the number of customers we have to support, but also on the engineering teams. I mean, we've just moved into the new engineering headquarters in Linz. And even though it's a huge building, it's already too small. And we're building, we're just opening, offices around the globe with more engineering talent. And how can we make sure that these developers really stay productive. And I think it's going to be really cool to hear the stuff from him, what we're doing internally.
Right. And I think, I've seen some of this stuff on ACE, right? We haven't, on the SC side, we haven't dug into it too much yet. I know there's some workshops going around, but if I understand correctly, or at least my interpretation of it, right, is that as we've gone through these transformations and we've set up a lot of our own best practices, we've gone through the pains of figuring out how to enable all this stuff. Part of what the ACE team is doing is saying, hey, look, we figured out a bunch of this stuff, and now we want to share it with anybody who's looking to take a shortcut and say, can we learn from and leverage what you've figured out and built upon, which I think it goes back to a lot of what we see everywhere in technology these days of sharing, right? It's not, I built it, I'm going to keep it secret from you, and you're going to have to do it on your own. The great thing about everybody in technology is there's this overwhelming desire to share and help others grow and improve processes, because at the end of the day, that's going to come back to you, and you're going to learn something from someone else and continue that cycle. Is that a decent way to frame it?
That's a perfect explanation. Now, what we have to also understand, though, is that every organization is different. So while certain things work for us in a certain way, what we try to do with ACM and kind of the way we are bringing how we help our customers become better digital software companies to release better software faster. We're trying to obviously adapt it because every organization is different, but certain key principles, I think, can be implemented everywhere. And that's also how I kind of laid out the rest of my track. So I kick it off with Thomas, getting an insight on what's currently happening within the Dynatrace ACE team. But then I basically align my track with the 4 building blocks of ACM. And I also wrote a blog about it. So in case people are interested, there's a blog that came out, I think, like 2 weeks ago, and it's called A Taste of What's Come at Perform, Release Better Software Faster track. And I explained there that I aligned my track with the 4 building blocks of ACM, which is monitoring as a self-service, performance as a self-service, delivery as a self-service, and operations as a self-service. So these are kind of the 4 building blocks for me. And for all of these kind of 4 building blocks, we have people come in and talk about, on the one side, how you actually implement this with Dynatrace. So for instance, monitoring as a self-service, we'll have a session that is led by Peter Heck, and also Christoph Renders are doing it with customers, how to correctly, automatically roll out Dynatrace, automated tagging, how can you use the APIs so that everyone immediately gets the data that they need. Because I always say, for me, Dynatrace is not just a monitoring tool, but it allows me to get the right answers to the right people at the right time. And this is what monitoring as a self-service also means for me. So whoever I am in the organization, if I set up Dynatrace correctly, I can always get the data that I need in the way and at the time I need it. So I'm also expecting from them, and this is also what I wrote in the blog, I'm expecting in these breakouts that are related or that are targeted around monitoring as a self-service to learn about how can I use the Davis Assistant, for instance, the Slack integration or the MS Teams integration, to automatically, just in a chat ops way, get the data that I need in order to make the next right decision. And what does it take to really set up Dynatrace correctly with the tagging, with the management zones, with the dashboards and all that stuff. So that's going to be interesting.
That will be.
Yeah. Then the next thing, and I'm really happy about that session as well, because obviously this is a topic that is dear to both of our hearts, is everything around performance as a self-service, or performance engineering as a self-service. There's going to be a breakout that is led by Rob Yan, and he actually is doing it with Panera Bread. So that's going to be very cool on how they transform their kind of, let's say, more traditional approach to performance engineering with a performance center of excellence to a mode where they are enabling individual development teams to do performance engineering themselves. So they help them build the performance practices. They're becoming mentors and help them build this, but then basically hand it over, and then they can run their own performance tests and they get their own performance results as a self-service. So I think that's pretty cool.
I do want to plug here for a minute, though, that Rob, I will be an assistant, backseat assistant, really, because I'll be very busy with the podcasting for Perform, but I will be a backseat assistant for Rob and Henrik Rexid on integrating load testing into your monitoring. One of the hot day sessions.
The hot days. Yeah, that's the hands-on training days. Well, thanks for that reminder. So folks,
Yes.
in case you are still contemplating about whether you want to come to Perform or not, and when you want to just go to the conference or also hot days, we have 2 days of hands-on training days, Monday and Tuesday. We have four slots, right? I think Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and then Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon. And there's so many topics that we cover. And you're right. You're doing this with Rob and Henrik.
Yeah, and that kind of fits in right with what you're saying there, because it's, I mean, you could run your performance test and then spend hours analyzing it, but why not automate it, right? And that's the general idea. Again, how do you deliver better software faster? This is one key part of it, but I think it's going to be really great to hear what they're doing with Panera on that front as well.
And what I also like about this session, I want them to speak and explore the ideas of SLIs and SLOs. I mean, it's not a new idea. Google has been talking about the service level indicators and service level objectives, but we've been promoting this now also with our new implementation of the Keptn quality gates.
I saw that.
Yeah. So defining SLIs. So what are your indicators? What are the metrics that are important for you? And then what are your objectives? And objective is always something that you phrase in a positive way. So I'm expecting, or my objective is, let's say 100 milliseconds, or my objective is that I'm not increasing my number of database calls for the login transaction. And so we can now kind of write this down as SLIs and SLOs, and they can be automatically evaluated as part of your delivery. And that's also something that we will see in that session. And that's pretty cool. Which brings me to the next session that it covers, kind of it extends that idea of performance engineering, but kind of building performance engineering into the kind of delivery pipeline. So the idea here is we have Christian Heckelmann from ERT on stage. He's been doing some awesome work, especially around integrating Dynatrace into his GitLab pipeline. So they're using GitLab, and he built extensions for GitLab where you can call the different Dynatrace APIs. He's also integrated the GitLab pipeline with the Keptn quality gates I just talked about. So we'll see him on stage with Michael Villager and talking about how to build resiliency into your continuous delivery pipeline. And the really cool thing, and at the time of the recording, I just finished writing a blog post with him. So they're heavily, invested in Kubernetes. And what he said, the biggest challenge with Kubernetes for them is, while Kubernetes internally has the capability to do self-health checks. So, right, when you deploy, you can have a liveness probe and a health probe, or a readiness probe and a liveness probe. But what Kubernetes is really only doing, it's checking the health of the services and pods within the Kubernetes cluster. It doesn't tell you anything on whether your services are correctly exposed through an ingress, whether your load balancers are set up correctly, whether your firewalls are set up correctly. Basically, nothing tells you whether your services can actually be used from the outside world. So what Christian has actually built, he has built 2 approaches of automatically setting up Dynatrace synthetic tests as part of the delivery. So within the GitLab pipeline, he's automatically creating a synthetic test, setting it up from different locations that are important for them. And then as part of the pipeline run, also waiting for that result of the first synthetic tests, making sure that the services are not only properly deployed, but also can be accessed from the outside. So that's pretty cool. And
that is. Before you go on the last point, though, or were you about to go on to the last point?
Say it again?
Or no? Were you about to go on to the last point?
I have one more thing there. So
before you go to the last point, though, I want to take a moment to address our listeners.
What?
Hello, listeners. We often try to make this not about Dynatrace, right? And we love you all. We love Dynatrace, obviously, too. One thing I want to point out, everything that Andy's talking about here, though, while the blogs and everything else is going to be covered from the Dynatrace point of view, the concepts are universal.
Exactly.
Right. So integrating all these APIs, integrating all these connections and testing and pulling in. Obviously, if you're not using Dynatrace, you should be able to probably do this with other things. So they're still good to check out. Look at those blogs. Even if you're not using Dynatrace, you want to come to Perform and see how some things are done, get some ideas, do that. But again, this is beyond just, hey, use Dynatrace and get this done. This is all ideas of how to deliver. It's really just the idea: deliver better software faster. This is the way we do it, right? And we can help you do it, but it's the ways anybody can do it.
Well,
so with that little caveat,
no,
go
thank
on
you so much.
Andy.
So normally I'm trying to remind our guests of staying, keeping it on a thought leadership level. But you're right. So basically the problem.
Well, I'm the host and you're the guest,
Exactly. So, but the problem that Christian really solves is, while Kubernetes is doing internal health checks, it doesn't cover the external health checks. So are these services really available? And he just automated the pipelines to include setting up synthetic tests from the outside and validating it. The other thing he did, he came up with a second solution, which I even prefer more, because the first solution as part of the pipeline is great, but it will only work for things that you deliver through a pipeline where you actually make the calls to set up, synthetic tests. Now in Kubernetes, Brian, we have the concept of an operator. So the operator makes operations easier because you can automate operational tasks in case something happens in your Kubernetes cluster. So he called it the SynOps, the synthetic operator. So he built an operator that automatically listens to change events in ingress configuration. So every time an ingress is created or modified, he will automatically set up or update the synthetic test through the API.
Oh, wow.
And then, just using the alerting, in our case, Dynatrace, to alert back to the teams through, let's say, Slack in their case, whether a change has a positive or negative impact on the SLAs of the services that are exposed to the outside world. And this is phenomenal for me, right? I mean, that's an awesome.
That really carries on with the theme that we started seeing come out in last year's Perform, where whether it was Dynatrace or some of the other tools, Kubernetes, OpenShift, where people were starting to use these tools in ways that I don't want to say they weren't designed to use, but there are these API endpoints on these tools, and people get creative and say, what can I do with this? It's not necessarily part of the tool. There's no documentation in the tool to say, hey, you can use it to do this. People just look at this and say, wait a minute, this is open on on tool A, and we have an API in tool B. I can write something and put it in between here and do this really cool new thing, just like you're saying, check for an egress change and modify my scripts and run a test, make sure everything's going automatically. This is not stuff that Kubernetes or even, let's say, Dynatrace were built specifically to do, but ways in which you can use them because it's available, right? And this is the stuff that I love hearing, right? Because you have these tools, and a lot of people think the tool performs its function, and the main function it's defined for is what it does. But in reality, we're seeing a lot more creative uses going on, way beyond what the primary function of these tools are.
Yeah,
it's just awesome.
And the APIs make all this possible, right? Thanks to the APIs, we can automate all these things. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. So it's Christian Heckelman. By the time of this, when this airs, the blog that I was just talking about should be out. So check it out.
Great.
The next session is also extremely cool because it's a topic that is also pretty hot out there right now. It talks about the new deployment models, canary deployments, blue-green, feature flagging. So we have Safia Habib, one of our colleagues. She's driving that session. And she has Marek from ANC Bank out of New Zealand with her on stage because they've been doing some phenomenal things around blue-green, or they call it, I think, yellow-green deployments, something like that. But in the end, they really explain how much benefit these type of deployments actually have for the business, because you can roll out new features targeted to a certain user base and then basically run experiments, right? Because that's what canary deployments are all about. You're running an experiment, figuring out, is the canary good enough? And in case it is good enough, you can then, and you have the data to support it, you can then decide, all right, let's roll it out to the rest of the user base. So if it's not good enough, bring it back, fix what needs to be fixed, and then try it again. So I think that's going to be an awesome breakout as well.
Yeah.
And they will, I want them to talk about how you technically implement it. So they will give an overview for those that are not familiar with all these deployment models, how it works, and also how you can monitor it. That should be pretty cool. And Brian, then we have a session from...
Wait, there's more?
There's more, yeah. There's two.
What else do I
I know
get?
there's two more things. There is we actually have Citrix, not only on the podcast,
Yes.
right? But we actually have Sohaib with Jürgen Etzelsdorfer. He's leading that track, that breakout from a Dynatrace perspective, and he's supported by Sohaib. And they basically talk about how can you really reach no-ops? How can you really implement auto-remediation through the stuff we've heard from Sohaib and Nestor in the podcast before, using chatbots to deal with problems that were detected and then executing auto remediation scripts and stuff like that. So that's going to be very interesting. And we know that Citrix has been doing a lot of great things over the years. And what I've seen, they are one of the most mature companies that I've worked with. So that's definitely going to be a great session to learn from wherever you are on that journey. What should be your goal, right? I think your goal should be to reach a level like the Citrix guys are doing.
And I just want to point out to the Citrix too, because you said they've accomplished a lot, and we have documented in podcast form some of those waypoints, right? So if you go back to, I believe it's episode 49, that's when we talked to Nestor and Abir, and they were telling us, they were part of the way through their transformation. And we got to hear about some of the challenges they got past and the upcoming challenges that they were going to be facing, that all seemed very, very daunting, which is not typical of the type of story you hear, right? Normally we hear when it's done. And this was great because it was a middle time period. So if you want to get some perspective, right, if you're just starting this process of, your digital transformation, you're trying to automate everything, listen to that episode because you'll probably hear a lot of similar stories, but also get the idea that, this doesn't all happen overnight. It's not all super easy and super smooth. Some parts of it are, some parts are challenging, and you got to really find ways to get over these parts or get past these pieces. And that's another thing that I think is great with Citrix is they've been sharing this journey with us since they started a few years ago, and it's really been fascinating to follow.
Yeah, but we all know in the end, Nestor just wants to get more Dynatrace sneakers. That's the reason why he's always applying for speakers.
Exactly. He's the reason he does all this work is so that he doesn't really care about automation. He just wants the sneakers.
He wants to beat Dave Anderson. That's what it is.
We'll have to put them in a cage fight, and whoever wins gets the final pair of sneakers.
Yeah. So, which brings me to kind of the last session in my breakout track, which is targeted around Keptn. So Keptn has evolved in the last 12 months because we officially kind of introduced Keptn at last year's Perform with I think it was version 0.1, even 0.2. And a year has passed. We have I think changed certain implementations once or twice. So if you follow some of the work that the team has been doing online, it's an open source project, so you can actually listen into all the different community meeting recordings we have out there. You can check out the website. So as of today, we are at 0.6, and I believe at Perform, the plan is to actually come with 0.6 will be G8 by Perform. And because right now we're in beta. But what the great thing about the breakout is we're not just having the Keptn team there. We actually have Avodac, one of our partners and customers that actually have implemented Keptn to deliver one of their services on Kubernetes in a fully automated way. So really using Keptn as a control plane for continuous delivery and automated operations. And they are basically, so Dirk Wallersdorfer, who leads the Keptn development team, he is on stage with the guys from Avodac, and they basically explain, what problems it solves, and also in which direction we want to go and what we've learned over the years, and why Keptn is a project that we're driving forward because we think it's a fast path to autonomous cloud management, right? It implements a lot of these use cases we just talked about, the monitoring as a self-service, because Keptn automatically sets up your monitoring, configures it correctly. It implements the quality gates following the SLI and SLO principles. It includes a self-healing component, right? So there's all these things that we've been hearing from our own internal transformation and from our customers. We've implemented this in Keptn, which again should be if you decide to use Keptn, should be a fast path to ACM for you.
Right. And just a reminder for listeners who haven't been, maybe new listeners or people who tune out towards the end when Andi always brings up Keptn on our episodes. It is an open source product. We are not selling you anything with that. So it's worth checking out. There are some great tutorials and walkthroughs online. I've gone through them myself. And you have access to all the files, so you can really dig into the config files and everything else to start piecing together what's going on behind the scenes, what it's all doing. It's pretty fascinating. I kind of still wrapping my head around it because I'm not obviously doing deployments and all this stuff, so I'm just learning it for academic reasons. But it's really cool what it's enabling.
Yeah, and it's also it's also constantly evolving and changing. So make sure you check out the latest thing on Keptn.sh on the GitHub project. Also, by the time this podcast airs, there should have been an announcement coming up around mid-December, which gives also a little bit of an update on Keptn and the direction we're heading to. So it's all exciting things we're doing here. So yeah, Brian. So this is kind of this was my hope with this podcast. I wanted to give people an understanding on how we want to help them transform into digital native software development companies in order to release better software faster. I'm a strong believer that we need to follow what Gene Kim has been doing and kind of telling us over the last years, and now also with his latest book. We need to work on developer productivity, and we need to make sure that all of the services to deliver software, to get feedback, is accessible as a self-service. And I also strongly believe, and have a lot of discussions with our customers around this, that the traditional IT teams have to basically convert into becoming internal cloud providers, right? And that's also what Mike Kavis said in the last episode, right? I mean, that's basically cloud. What does cloud mean for you? Cloud doesn't necessarily mean you just use the public clouds only and that's it. But I think IT organizations have to figure out what cloud means for their organization and then provide the same level of self-service for their internal development teams. And whether that is then on-premise technology or hybrid, that remains to be seen, or that depends on the company and the organization.
Yeah, great. And I think it's important, we keep on bringing up Gene Kim, not just because we, think he's awesome, but the books, especially the Phoenix Project, what it covers is what we talk about and a lot of other people talk about is this transformation, getting to this autonomy, getting to this self-service. But when you actually start to try to do it, it can be daunting. It can be, if you don't have the proper support, or even if you don't have the experience within the team, if you're not lucky enough to have someone who maybe has done it somewhere else and now they're at your place and they can help guide, it can be overwhelming because you're thinking of this big picture. We want to get to this big end goal, right? And that's a lot of work that goes into that. What I think is really awesome about these workshops you lead, a lot of times you're doing webinars with these pieces, the blog entries that you put out all the time, and also these tracks that you're doing in Perform, is these are ways to help people understand or learn how to tackle some of these piece by piece, right? Because you can't build it all in one day, but how to start peeling it back and working on these pieces and ideas on how and where to start. And that, again, the reason I mentioned Gene Kim is because that's what exactly the team is going through in the Unicorn Project is how do we start this, right? And as you read through the book, they start with, okay, let's figure out how to automate this. And then once that piece is done, they're like, but now we bump into this next piece. All right, now we have to tackle that next piece. So it is a step-by-step process. There's a lot of learning and tweaking that goes on as it occurs. But one thing that a lot of people out there are doing is sharing what they've learned, how they've done it, to give you examples so that you don't have to start from scratch. So I encourage anybody who's on that journey to not only look at what Andi and our other colleagues from Dynatrace might be putting out there, but other experts in the field, what they're putting out there, because everyone's got a lot to share. And it's all hugs and love.
Exactly.
Right. So, Andi, is there anything else that you wanted to mention, or am I going to have to summon Sumtron?
I think you have to summon Sumtron, yeah. I think that's it, no?
Well, I think I just summoned Sumtron there, but I'll give a better summary than that. Come to Perform, it's fun, right? If you can come, I know there's always competing conferences out there, but if you're interested in learning these things, or at least how Dynatrace can help you with that, give you other ideas, come on out to perform. If you just want to learn about other, there's a lot of, when we talk about the sharing, there's also a lot of other people who are trying to go through these processes, all of our customers who are going to be there. So you don't even have to listen to us. Go talk to the other customers who are there. They're always happy. Some of the best conversations we overhear are from customer to customer, sharing their experiences, sharing what worked, giving each other ideas, taking ideas. So it's a lot of fun. You get to spend some time in Vegas in February. So get away from the cold if you're in a cold weather state. But it's, we always have a good time. And I just encourage people to come. And then again, if for nothing else, come to Vegas, come to the Pure Performance booth, shares your story. You can be on the podcast, and you'll have fame and fortune beyond your wildest dreams as a result. I mean, look at Andi and I. We can't even walk down the street. It's like the Beatles in 1964 landing in America. It's crazy.
What have you been drinking today? I don't.
Just water and coffee.
Not sure what they put in your water in Denver, but
well, it is Denver.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
All right,
Thank
Andi.
you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for being a guest on the show. I think this was pretty successful. I might like to have you back. Maybe you'd like to try being. Maybe it could be. We could do a trial of you being a guest host. Yeah. Maybe here or there. And then, I guess until next episode. Happy holidays to everybody, whatever holiday you celebrate or don't celebrate.
Well, happy New Year, I would say, right? Because after this episode, we probably have New Year's is coming up.
Yeah, we'll probably be taking a little hiatus until sometime in January, and then we'll be going a little bit light, I think, at the beginning of the year as we gear up for Perform. So we might not have a regular schedule right away until after Perform, which is February, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or somewhere in that
right
time
after
frame.
Super Bowl, whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we'll be back on a full regular schedule after that, hopefully. But we will have some regular episodes in between now and then. So Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you all for listening and making this all possible. We love each and every one of you. I won't say as if you're our own child because, we don't always love our children. I'm kidding. So it's fun to make fun of your kids, Andi.
Yeah, I will. I can't do that right now because I don't have any kids. I trust you on that.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Thank you, Andi. Let's talk to everyone soon. Bye.